Okay, we are finally ready to start. I hope you are able to get the feed. If you can hear me, please let us know. The link was not working tonight, so that's why we've been delayed. If you can hear this and if you can see, please let me know. I think I will adjust this a little bit. So give us an email or a chat if you can hear and see. Okay, everything's good, so let's get started. Last week we had some homework, and I asked the question, what is the disease that threatens humanity, and does it truly frighten you? And I got some responses. And I would like to read one of the responses and talk about it. Let's see. This is the one I want to read. A student writes, I think the disease that threatens to destroy humanity is the lack of moral conscience. Let me write that down. Lack of moral conscience. The moral values were submitted to only a social standard in spite of the collective conscious level has gone down in modernity. The English there is a little difficult, but what I think the individual is saying is the source of our moral values is social convention. Morality is coming from social consensus. Rather than from an outside authority. Let's see what else. And the level of social consensus has gone down in modernity, during the modern age. So, the tyrant of our time is public opinion. I thought that was a very good line. The tyrant of our time is public opinion. It threatens to silence our interior voice, the voice that establishes our conscious contact with God. It truly frightens me because that barbaric mentality threatens to take over our civilization. I wanted to interact with this particular answer in a couple of ways. First, I want to write the phrase, the tyrant of our time is public opinion. In America, public opinion says you should not smoke cigarettes. tobacco. And so, in this day and age, it is hard to go to a restaurant and be able to smoke. If a friend or a family member wants to, they can come up to you and take your cigarette out of your mouth and put it out right in front of you. That is not considered rude or unfriendly. The young people say, everyone is doing it. When you try to show them that something is wrong, they say everyone is doing it, which means it's right. So public opinion has become the arbiter of morality, according to this student, and I agree. My question that I don't have the answer to, but if we were discussing, I would ask this question, and maybe someone can write back to me and give me an answer. My question is, this lack of moral conscience, is this the disease, or is this a symptom of a deeper disease? Where do morals come from? What causes a population of people to have a high moral conscience as opposed to a low one? In other words, what is the disease that has caused the lack of moral conscience? That's my question. So if you have an answer, you can write it to me and we can continue the dialogue. But I thought that was an interesting answer. And I definitely agree with it very much. The next question in our minds for class today is, what does Levis think is the disease that threatens humanity? He is the one who used the phrase. And today we will move into a section which will give us some light on what Levis meant when he wrote that phrase. Okay, let us go to our book, to page, we will begin with page 50, but I'm going to start reading on page 49. At the bottom of the page, the last paragraph, beginning with the words, these considerations. Okay, this is the part we studied last week. Page 49. These considerations have obvious bearings on the study in the spirit represented by the discipline of thought for which I contend, of literature, the supreme creative art of language. It is perhaps time to say once more that I haven't the sanguine expectation of one who sees himself as offering a sure prescription, or a prescription at all. The disease that threatens to destroy humanity is truly frightening. One of the most frightening things is that no pointer to the only way in which we could begin the combat against it, no considered account in terms of opportunistic tactics and the principles they represent, will be widely recognized as that. Perhaps it is ceasing to be alleged, crudely and confidently, that F.R. Levis, for instance, thinks that the world can be saved by literary criticism. But this close of a kindly, brief notice of my last book is typical of the reception to be expected. Quote, apart from his belief that a good university, which of course would have a good English school, would be a creative center of civilization, however, he has little to offer in the way of dams to hold back the American tide. Okay, the disease has something to do with the American tide. And we need to know what the American tide is. So let's move on and read our next paragraph. No proposed remedy, answering to the analogy of a dam, could be relevant to the actual disease. America has long been menacing our future, and the complete triumph of Americanization there accelerates the progress of the disease in this country, where it originated and would, in any case, have made a rapid and menacing advance. British capital and British know-how enabled America to develop a railroad network at great speed, and industrialism, a British invention, made inevitable the victory of the North in the Civil War. There is still, nevertheless, a difference. We have suffered no such abrupt opening of an impassable gap between the present and the past as was entailed in the swift formation of the new, immense, and supremely powerful country. It is not credible that America could save itself. The unum, the memory, the faith, and the living intuitive faculty that must be appealed to in the initiation of the new kind of sustained creative effort can't be appealed to there. I'm hoping to get through half of the next paragraph as well, so I think I'll go ahead and read up to the point I hope to get to, because it sheds light on what we're going to be studying today. So I'm going to read on for half a paragraph. Excuse me. It isn't easy to complete the discrimination. I find it possible to say only that there are still the makings of an educated public to be rallied into one here, and some ghost, or more, of memory that might be turned into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. As for the good university, it would be misleading if I suggested that I base my belief that such an effort should be made on the expectation of finding that, or anything closely approaching a good English school, which is an ideal. The multiplication of universities and numbers in the Robbins era would alone suffice to make belief so conditioned dismissible. Belief must be both more humble and more bold. What I advocate is opportunism, the taking and making of opportunities, opportunism inspired and informed by the living principle. From experience, I know that there are places where opportunities may be counted on, and I am sure they could be made at many. To say this is to recognize that they will vary immensely in kind. Wherever there is a university teacher with the vocation and the courage that should go with it, the possibility exists. His initiatives are likely to enlist collaboration, and collaboration covers a diversity of response and assistance. This is faith, but faith confirmed in experience. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and we may not even get that far, but let's get to the beginning of our new section. No proposed remedy answering to the analogy of a dam could be relevant to the actual disease. Okay, the key concepts in this sentence. The first key concept is that of a dam. A dam is a barrier designed to hold back water. This is water, and this is water. And a dam holds back water that would flood onward. No proposed remedy answering to the analogy of a dam could be relevant to the actual disease. Okay, the second concept is remedy versus disease. Remedy and disease. Remedy. A remedy does not hold back a disease. It cures it. A dam holds back a force. It holds back a force. But a remedy cures the disease. So, no remedy answering to the analogy of a dam is going to be relevant to the disease that threatens humanity. So, we have a disease which he has not explained, and the author who wrote the quote says he has little to offer in the way of dams to hold back the American tide. So this is the American tide. Threatening to fill up the English Channel. And Levis doesn't want to dam it up, he wants to cure it. So, no proposed remedy, no proposed means a suggestion. No proposed remedy answering to the analogy of a dam could be relevant to the actual disease. So we have remedies specific to diseases, and if something is just holding it back, it will not match. America has long been menacing our future. In what sense is America menacing England's future? In one sense, the future comes 1 minute at a time, no matter what you do. The future will come even if England is blown up. So, we are using future in a different sense than literal. Literal future is just minutes in time that will come no matter what. You cannot menace that. He is using future to mean a certain kind of hope for the future. The hope of a healthy, intellectually healthy, morally healthy civilization in England in the future. He might be thinking something else as well, but certainly the word future is not being used literally. America has menaced our future. How can that be? let's read on. In what sense is America? Does he mean America the country? Or does he mean Americanism? Something that is happening in American civilization, which is exporting itself to England and to other places. I think that's how he's using it. So, America has long been menacing our future. When they say long been, it means for a long time, America has been menacing our future. America has been a threat for a long time. And the complete triumph of Americanization there accelerates the progress of the disease in this country. Very interesting sentence. The complete triumph of Americanization a complete triumph is a total victory. If you win a complete triumph in a war, you have completely devastated the enemy. You have taken over and occupied the land. There is no resistance. It's through. Complete triumph means universal coverage. Okay? Complete triumph of Americanization. Where the complete triumph of Americanization there. What does he mean by there? He means in America. The complete triumph of Americanization in America. So the question arises, what is Americanization? If Americanization had to triumph in America, you would think that the word Americanization simply means to live like Americans. And people have lived like Americans in America by definition from the beginning. So you wouldn't think there would have to be a triumph. Apparently, Americanization means something other than to live like an American. It's apparently a force that is coming on Americans and changing them. So we have all of these Americans and they have their innate qualities of that define them as Americans. And then you have this cloud of Americanization which came in and changed the character of the people, turning them into something different. And we have to wonder, what are the characteristics of these new Americanized Americans? You know, maybe there's one person that the cloud hasn't descended on yet, and all the rest are Americanized Americans. So you've got to wonder, what are the characteristics of Americanization? I'm not sure yet. Let's continue to read on. But we have to realize that it does not simply mean live like an American, because it was something that needed to triumph in America itself. So, The complete triumph of Americanization there, meaning in America, accelerates the progress of the disease in this country. Okay, if Americanization has triumphed in America, and that process is now at work in England. Here are the English. And the complete triumph of Americanization over here has accelerated the process over here. Of the disease. So we can see that Americanization is equated with the disease. Now, our students pretty much said that the disease was moral. It was sin. Other responses called it original sin, or the tendency of man to choose foolishly apart from God. So our students felt that the disease in our time is the lack of morality. This book was written 60 years ago, possibly before the moral collapse of our day. And apparently the disease Levis is thinking of, he is also calling Americanization. And he has not yet defined it. We're going to have to figure it out from the context. So let's keep reading. Let's see. America has long been menacing our future, and the complete triumph of Americanization there accelerates the progress of the disease in this country, England, where it originated and would in any case have made rapid progress and menacing advance. Well, that's interesting. What he's saying is that Americanism originated in England. Americanization. As a disease originated in England and went to America, where it quickly took over, triumphed completely, and now, according to Levis, all of America is Americanized, and it is sending its roots back to England, where its progress is becoming more and more rapid. Whatever it is. Americanization originated supposedly in England. And America has long been menacing England. So we're talking about a long time ago this process began. Let's read on. Oh, and then he went on to say, where it originated in England and would in any case have made a rapid and menacing advance. It would in any case have made a rapid and menacing advance. In any case means without respect to the circumstance we're speaking of. The quote said that the complete triumph of Americanization in America is accelerating the progress of the disease in England. But even without this disease would have made rapid, menacing progress in England. In any case means we don't even need this. The disease was already entrenched and menacing before this happened. Okay. Now we're going on to talk about it some more. British capital and British know-how enabled America to develop a railroad network at great speed. Okay, this sentence is supporting the idea that Americanization began in England. And one piece of data is that British capital, meaning British money, capital is money, and British know-how, which is a way of saying British technological knowledge, British technology, British abilities were what made America develop a railroad network at great speed. So, Americanization has something to do with the industrialization of America. Because it is true that America borrowed technological information from England in order to set up its industrial factories and its railroads. Also, it is true that England invested in the United States money, which caused the United States to get started. So British capital and British know-how is what caused the Industrial Revolution in America. And so America developed a railroad network at great speed, very rapidly developed this network of railroads. And industrialism, a British invention, made inevitable the victory of the North in the Civil War. So we call it industrialization. He's calling it industrialism, a British invention. So he's taking credit for Great Britain for the Industrial Revolution completely. And it is true, British was industrializing before the United States, and we got a lot of our technology from Britain. And this industrialization, he puts it, made inevitable the victory of the North in the Civil War. I don't know about made inevitable, but certainly industrialization was a great advantage to the North in the Civil War. But we wonder, what does this have to do with Americanization? Let's read on. There is still, nevertheless, a difference. We have suffered no such abrupt opening of an impassable gap between the present and the past as was entailed in the swift formation of the new, immense, and supremely powerful country. There is still, nevertheless, a difference. Okay, still, nevertheless, both of those phrases imply something different and contrary about to be said. Now, what he was saying is that the disease of Americanization started in Great Britain, went to America, completely triumphed, and now came back and is making rapid triumph over England. So he was basically saying America and England are very similar. And England's ideas shaped America. And therefore, America is in England's image, and England is rapidly becoming Americanized in the disease sense. However, there is a difference between England and the United States. So he says, there is still, nevertheless, a difference between the United States and England. We, England, have suffered no such abrupt opening of an impassable gap between the present and the past as was entailed in the swift formation of the new, immense, and supremely powerful country. We have suffered no such abrupt opening of an impassable gap. Okay, they have suffered means the thing is a bad thing. We have suffered no such. No such suggests that what they have not suffered is something which was suffered here. The word such means like what was suffered here. So we have suffered no such abrupt opening of an impassable gap. Abrupt means sudden. This is not gradual. It was sudden. Opening of an impassable gap. An impassable gap between the past and the present. No such abrupt opening of an impassable gap between the present and the past as was entailed in the swift formation of the new, immense, and supremely powerful country. You know, it is said that America is a country with no past. When you think of England, England has a history that goes back thousands of years. It can be easily traced 1,500 years and further before you get to barbarians. America, the United States, has only about 300 years before you really get to barbarians, if you consider the Native Americans, the Indians, to be uncivilized. And they didn't have the United States traces its deep history really through England. If you go back in our collective memory, there comes a time when we jump the ocean and go back into the history of England. That's where our law comes from. That's where our literature comes from. That's where our morals and religion all come from. And yet, we're a new people. There is a break. There is a break. And Levis is saying the rapid formation of a huge, supremely powerful country entailed a break from the past. Because a new country that didn't exist before came into being. And it was a very significant new country, supremely powerful. And it opened up a gap in the memory of the people. Moving on. It is not credible that America could save itself. If something is not credible, that means it's not believable. That means America cannot save itself. No one can believe that America could save itself. He still hasn't told us from what. But anyway, it is not credible that America could save itself. The Ahnung, the memory, the faith, and the living intuitive faculty that must be appealed to in the initiation of the new kind of sustained creative effort can't be appealed to there. Okay, we're beginning to get an inkling, that's a small idea, an inkling of what the disease is, what he means by Americanization. When he says America cannot save itself because the Ahnung, meaning the premonition of the future, the memory, going all the way back in a continuity through millennia of wisdom. The faith that humanity will emerge in triumph. And the living intuitive faculty. That would be that something which the captain possessed in The Secret Sharer. The ability to make an executive decision and to know what's right and what's wrong according to deeply held and wisely proportioned values. And, well, the living intuitive faculty informed by the living principle that must be appealed to in the initiation of a new kind of sustained creative effort can't be appealed to there. When it says that must be appealed to in the initiation of the new kind of sustained creative effort, must be appealed to means these ingredients must be in the people. The Anung, the sense of the future, the faith, the memory, and the living intuitive faculty. These are essential ingredients to the cure of this disease. So we have to think, what is the disease that these things are essential in the cure? Americanization is the disease. And he's saying these things cannot be appealed to in America. They don't exist in America. And they are necessary for the new kind of sustained creative effort that will be the remedy to this disease. A new kind of sustained creative effort, energy. New kind of sustained creative, new kind of sustained creative effort. Okay, this is what he is offering at this point as the remedy for the disease that he's calling Americanization. This new kind of sustained creative effort will be a remedy, not a barrier. It will not be a dam. It will not hold something back. It will create new life. It will be a seminal influence. It will be the living potency of humanity. These are phrases we've studied in the past. We are not looking to fix or put a Band-Aid on something. We are looking to engender new life. When a fire devastates a forest, you need new growth. And if you have new growth, you will have a new forest. If all you do is hold back the fire, you will not have new forest, and you will probably not be able to hold it back forever. You need to engender new life. And this new life will involve a new kind of sustained creative effort. A new kind. So I think he doesn't just mean more of the old, more Conrads, more Chaucers, more Socrateses. He seems to be looking for something new, a new kind of sustained creative effort. And he says it cannot be appealed to in America because the necessary ingredients are not present. Let us move on to the first half of the next paragraph. Maybe we'll even get further. It isn't easy to complete the discrimination. I find it possible to say only that there are still the makings of an educated public to be rallied into one here, and some ghost or more of memory that might be turned into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. Let's stop there. I want to point out that phrase, the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. The kind of creative effort in which alone there can be hope. So it is clear here that Levis is saying that the remedy is in a certain kind of creative effort. But let's move to the beginning of the paragraph. It isn't easy to complete the discrimination. What is a discrimination? A discrimination is telling two things apart, discriminating between them so that you know what are the characteristics of this one and what are the characteristics of that one, and seeing that the two are not the same, they are separate. So, the discrimination is between England and America, and he says it's not easy to complete it, to give a clear, accurate, complete list of the characteristics of England as opposed to the characteristics of America. In fact, there's probably quite a bit of overlap, especially since Americanization as a disease supposedly originated in England and is making rapid inroads in England. So it's probably not at all easy to complete the discrimination. But the idea is that somewhere deep within these Americanized Englishmen, there is a core of the unknown and the faith and the memory and the living intuitive faculty. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure I believe that this core of something special is inside Englishmen, but maybe that's my nationalism coming out. I like to think that there are individuals who can exercise that living intuitive faculty in every culture. I think of Olavo, but Levis is saying that it is a characteristic of Englishmen. So, anyway. So, it isn't easy to complete the discrimination, mainly because there's so much overlap, I'm sure. I find it possible to say only. Okay, so that means he doesn't want to overstate his case. He doesn't want to say more than he knows. He only will say a small thing, and that is that there are still the makings of an educated public to be rallied into one here. The makings of something. What does that mean? Well, if I have all of the ingredients to make a cake, then I have the makings of a cake. It means all of the ingredients assembled, but not yet put together. So you get out your milk, your flour, your eggs, your sugar, your vanilla, your salt, your pan, your oven, and you say, okay, I have all the makings for a good cake. Well, he is saying there are still the makings of an educated public. The makings of an educated public. The ingredients are present. I wonder what the ingredients are in his mind. The Anung, the memory, the faith. Something hard-headed and logical and sensible that's part of the English character. I wonder what he's thinking. But the makings of an educated public. An educated public is something that's part of the remedy. I'll put that in red because it's part of the remedy. An educated public. A population of people. A population of people that is educated is part of the solution. By the way, I received a comment in the email today. I read it today. A student was writing that some great educator had made the statement that education itself is not a value. Because education can be bad as well as good. Education is the training of a young mind, instructing in truth and molding toward a certain character. If the education molds the person toward virtue, then it is good. If the education informs the individual about the truth and enables the individual to think accurately and wisely, then it is good. It's a value. However, the education in America today, public education, is worse than nothing in some respects. That's why we have homeschooling, because people would rather not send their children to public education. They would rather keep them home and do what they can do at home to educate their children. So I agree. Education itself is not a value unless it is a good education. And Levis is saying an educated public, he is using educated in the best sense, classically educated, toward virtue and truth. So it isn't easy to complete the discrimination. I find it possible to say only that there are still the makings of an educated public to be rallied into one here. To rally a group together is to turn them into a cohesive group or movement. So what he's saying is that within these partially Americanized British subjects, there exists a heart to seek the living intuitive faculty and a mind to recognize wisdom. But they are overlaid with Americanism and poor education. But it is possible to rally them together into something worth having. Like if you have a fire and the coals get scattered around, but they're still glowing red. It would be possible to gather them together and blow on them until you get a flame. So he is saying that it is hard to discriminate between Americanized Americans and Americanized Brits. But all he's willing to say is there remains a British core in the heart and in the head that could be burst into a flame again. And some ghost or more of memory that might be turned into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. So when he says some ghost or more of memory. A ghost of memory. Memory is never a very substantial thing. But I can have a concrete memory. For example, today I went to the Home Depot store and ordered carpet. I have a concrete memory. But I also ran into a woman who I thought I had seen somewhere before, but I couldn't really remember where. Her face kept bothering me because I couldn't remember. I just had the merest ghost of a memory that I had met her somewhere before. This is a ghost of a memory. So he says there is a ghost or more of memory. So maybe it was a little more than my deja vu, my memory of that woman. Maybe I was sure I had met her. In fact, I knew when and where. That's more than a ghost. So he's saying there is some ghost or more of a memory that might be turned into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. Active sympathy. Sympathy usually means pity. I feel sorry for someone who is suffering. But it also means empathy. If I have empathy for someone, I am in sympathy with them. That means I feel them. And to be in sympathy with something means to support it. I am in sympathy with the conservative cause. I am not in sympathy with the liberal movement in America. So, some ghost of a memory which could be stirred up into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. So he's saying that in the British mind there remains a memory of a time when people were educated in such a way that they could read good books and appreciate them, that they could read classic literature and benefit from it. That's not how it is today, and the person who is remembering it cannot themselves read good books and appreciate them, but they remember at least reading about or hearing about a time in their grandparents' day when a young man would keep Dickens in his pocket to read for fun. Whereas today, a school child is forced to read Dickens. They don't enjoy it and they don't benefit from it. They don't understand it. But there's the ghost of a memory of a time when people did. And that could be turned into an active sympathy for the kind of creative effort in which is the only hope. So what would happen is, if you could tap into that memory in a middle-aged parent, they might support an alternative school that could teach the children to be able to read and appreciate fine classic literature and to be able to grow into men with chests. C.S. Lewis talks about the chestless man. The man of straw. A man who knows words like courage and nobility and honor, but he himself has no courage, nobility, or honor, and he doesn't even know it. That's a chestless man, a man of straw. But a parent might be willing to support an educational reform that would enable the next generation to grow up to have a chest, to have a character, and to have virtue. So, the discrimination between England and America, is that in England there are still the makings of an educated public. And there's still a bit of memory that can be turned into active sympathy for the creative effort in which alone there can be hope. Continuing on. As for the good university, and he is referring back up still to that quote we read in the beginning of class, apart from his belief that a good university, which of course would have a good English school, would be a creative center of civilization. However, he has little to offer in the way of dams to hold back the American tide. That's what he's referring back up to. As for the good university, it would be misleading if I suggested that I base my belief that such an effort, this is the effort, where is it? Creative effort right there. That such an effort should be made on the expectation of finding that, or anything closely approaching the good English school, which is an ideal. Okay. As for the university, up there he says his belief that a good university would be a creative center of civilization. As for the good university, it would be misleading if I suggested that I base my belief that such a creative effort would be made on the expectation of finding a good university. See, what he's saying is he believes that this kind of sustained creative effort is necessary to the salvation of civilization. But he really has no hope that this kind of creative effort can be located within a good university, because the good universities don't exist. That's what he's saying. As for the good university, it would be misleading if I suggested that I base my belief that such an effort should be made on the expectation of finding that. In other words, I'm not basing my recommendation that this is what we need on the assumption that we will have a good university. The multiplication of universities and numbers in the Robbins era would alone suffice to make belief so conditioned dismissible. Belief so conditioned, meaning if I believe that this rests on the condition of finding a good university, then this will never happen. The multiplication of universities and numbers in the Robbins era. Remember how we talked about the tide of textbooks being published, meaningless, useless textbooks, and the multiplication of universities full of students which are not students, students that don't want to learn, students that have no ability to learn, but who feel they have a right to higher education. And this multiplying more and more, and the standards coming down and down, this is what he's talking about. In the Robbins era, Lord Robbins, the Minister of Education, they have seen a proliferation of universities filled with non-students from Levis's point of view. And this flood of dumbed down college students makes the existence of a good university almost impossible. It's like having a good soup and flooding it with gallons and gallons and gallons of water. What's left is no more good soup. It's not going to be a good soup anymore. So there isn't any good university because of these numbers, at least, if nothing else. Belief in this must be both more humble and more bold. By humble, it means not asking for much. If you ask for a good university with a good English school so that you can cultivate the kind of sustained creative effort which would reinvigorate the moral and intellectual life of the country. If you ask for a good university and a good English school, then you're asking for too much. You have to ask for something less, something more humble. But at the same time, you have to ask for something more bold. How bold is it to say, well, if I can go to a good university and be in a top-notch English program, then I'll be able to put forth good creative output? No, it would be easy at that point. It would be hard not to succeed if you were in a good English school in an excellent university. But if you are going to take students who are out in the general public, like Olavo's students, working jobs and studying in their free time, and you are going to say, upon those rest the hope for the good creative effort, well, that's a belief more bold, much more bold. So at the same time, belief must be more humble and more bold. More humble because you won't find a good university and a good English program, and more bold because you're saying, in spite of the lack, we still believe it is possible for students in England. That's what Levis would say. But I say in Brazil and in Colombia and in the United States, in Virginia. Going on. What I advocate is opportunism. We've heard that word before. The taking and making of opportunities. The taking and making of opportunities is an explanation of what he means, of what he includes under the heading opportunism. The taking of opportunities means when you have an opportunity, you go for it. You do not miss a chance that is handed to you. But the making of opportunities means you make a chance where there was none before. Instead of waiting for a program to show up on the website, you go knocking on doors looking for something. Search the web. Email folk asking for what you're looking for what would be helpful. Devise a program for yourself. That is making an opportunity. Taking opportunities and making opportunities. Opportunism. It is the activity of the active and the alive. Opportunism, inspired and informed by the living principle. Inspired means it is because of the living principle within you that you seek these opportunities. The motive force within us is the living principle, the quest for existence on the part of mankind, the preservation of life, intellectual life that is part of our human nature. And the inspiration inspired by and informed by the living principle. Informed by means the direction is set by the living principle. It's like education. It could take you in the wrong direction. Well, inspiration and hunger and thirst for life and for creativity can take you in the wrong direction. All you have to do is look at the art that is supported by the National Endowment for the Arts in the United States. Art that is profane and ugly and nihilistic and empty and even unskilled. The creative impulse does not necessarily take you in the right direction. We need also information to know which direction to go. And the living principle offers that as well, according to Levis. And the living principle is what informed the valued decisions of the captain and Conrad. You might consider it God, the light, that which created and sustains and guides us and moves us through to a predefined purpose. Okay. Opportunism inspired and informed by the living principle. I'm going to back up and reread the whole bit we've studied so that we can get the flow, and then continue on to the portion that I was hoping to get through. But I feel like we're going to lose the flow if I don't reread. So I'm going to start with, it isn't easy to complete the discrimination. I find it possible to say only that there are still the makings of an educated public to be rallied into one here, and some ghost or more of memory that might be turned into active sympathy with the kind of creative effort in which alone there could be hope. As for the good university, it would be misleading if I suggested that I base my belief that such an effort should be made on the expectation of finding that, or anything closely approaching the good English school, which is an ideal. The multiplication of universities and numbers in the Robbins era would alone suffice to make belief, so conditioned, dismissible. Belief must be both more humble and more bold. What I advocate is opportunism, the taking and making of opportunities, opportunism inspired and informed by the living principle. Moving on. From experience, I know that there are places where opportunities may be counted on, and I am sure that they could be made at many. Okay, from experience, that means he has experienced it himself. He knows for sure firsthand that there are places where opportunities may be counted on. So opportunities to publish creative effort which will enlighten the world. There are opportunities. One opportunity in our day is blogs. The blogs are a venue for this today. But anyway, there are opportunities. There are places where opportunities may be counted on. To count on something is to expect it to be there with certainty so that you make preparations to take advantage of it. It will be there. And I am sure that they, meaning opportunities, could be made at many places. Okay, so he knows that there are already existing opportunities for this kind of creative effort, and he is also sure that more opportunities could be made in many places. To say this is to recognize that they will vary immensely in kind. So the places for opportunism and the kinds of opportunities will vary immensely. That's why we call it creativity. You have to be creative in order to even find the opportunities. Wherever there is a university teacher with the vocation and the courage that should go with it, The possibility exists. So now he's assuming that the people who are going to do the creative effort are the university teachers. And these teachers are the ones who can create opportunities for students to put forth new shoots of creative effort. So the position of teacher is a key position in a university. His initiatives are likely to enlist collaboration, and collaboration covers a diversity of response and assistance. So if you have a teacher, he will do things which will attract people of like mind who will then add their efforts to the effort. And the collaboration will cover a diversity of response and assistance. So in other words, it's going to vary a lot. He doesn't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to happen. This is faith. He has faith that this is going to happen. But faith confirmed by experience. Okay, we're going to stop now. If you have any questions, please send them by email. And I'll come back in 5 minutes to see if there are any questions, and we'll continue mid-paragraph next week. So give us some questions if you have any, about any phrase, any vocabulary, any concept. I'd be happy to. Okay, we have one question. A student asks, is Americanization a kind of industrialization of education? Or has he missed something? I would say we have all missed something. The idea of Americanization has not been defined by Levis. Levis seems to assume we know what he means, but really we don't. But one thing that is clear is that, according to Levis, Americanization involves a disconnect from the past. So we are like people who can only see the future and can't see our past. We have no appreciation for the past. We believe that what is new, what is in the future, is better. What is in the past is of no value. We don't value the past. And as such, the people become shallow. Their conversation is filled with the new technology, the new toys, the new computers, the new fashion, not remembering that this fashion was the same 50 years ago, thinking everything is new and new is better. America is very materialistic and not deep, partially because we have broken with the deep tradition of Europe in the past. So I think it is connected to the industrialization of education, but only obliquely connected. I think the fact that we run our children through a modern programmed education is a symptom of the fact that we don't remember what education should be from the past. But he was talking about industrialization as a support to his contention that the American mindset of modernity had its origins in Britain. He wasn't saying that Americanization equals industrialization. Is that clear enough? If there are any more questions, send them. Is there another question? Okay, there's another question.
Dear Margarita, can you please explain to me what Robin's era means?
Okay, the question is, what does the phrase Robin's era mean? I remember from some time ago, I don't remember where in the book it was, but Levis spoke of Lord Robbins. And we looked him up. I looked him up, and I believe, I actually can't remember, but I believe, wasn't he the one who made some very alarming statements about how here it is. It's on page 20. I'll read you. On page 20, third line down. Nevertheless, it is politic to insist on discipline and necessary to be able to justify the insistence. So important is the kind of intelligence in the present phase of human history, when Lord Robbins, surveying the needs of education at the university level, recognizes that the natural sciences must be complemented by the study of human nature, and brings out the force of this recognition by pointing to psychology and the social sciences. These are disciplines. His concessive gesture toward literature and the arts makes it plain that they are to be regarded as pleasing adjuncts to what really matters, graces and adornments in the margin of life that shouldn't be discouraged. They contribute dignity and amenity. So Lord Robbins, if I'm remembering correctly, was some sort of a minister of education during the day. And during his time as minister, there was a large proliferation of textbooks and numbers of students and numbers of universities. So the Robbins era refers to the time period when Lord Robbins was the Minister of Education. Any other questions?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Okay, I will see you next week. See you next Thursday.